release of Terminator Dark Fate this week, and that means we have 6 Terminator films to rank from worst to best. This is an interesting franchise for me because I know not all of them are the best, but I do have fun with the majority of them just because I love the concept of the Terminator. Doesn't mean that they hold to how great the first 2 were, but it's going to be fun to kind of go through, dive into my ranking, discuss each film in depth, and then give you guys my ranking. Make sure, guys, that if you guys are new here, hit that like and subscribe button for all sorts of content like this and reviews on a daily basis. And make sure to comment down below and let me know what your ranking is of the Terminator franchise. But without further ado, let's get started. Told you guys I would be back, which means we are discussing number 6 on my worst to best ranking list, which brings us to be Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. Now here's the thing. I don't know what it is with this movie. I just don't ever care to rewatch it. I think it's fun. There's some cool action beats in it, but I think my biggest issue with this is Arnold as the Terminator just doesn't feel like Arnold as the Terminator. It feels like he's kind of phoning it in, and I know there's some behind the scenes stuff within that whole entitlement of it, but I think that's the big piece of this film that does miss out. Plus, the wife character, I can give or take it. I think the coolest thing about this is the new Terminator and the way that the liquid metal and everything moves around. It's a cool dynamic and actually brings a different element to the Terminator franchise that we hadn't seen yet. And of course, the action is great. I do like the story, and the way that it ends is actually kind of on a sad note because really you pretty much end up going, yeah, they couldn't save Judgment Day at all, and I'm really all for that idea of what they did with 3. There's some good ideas in here. I think Arnold's just fine as the Terminator in here. He doesn't bring that same nuance that he's brought into some of the other Terminator roles, which is really the big reason why this one falls down so low for me. Speaking of low, we're going into my number 5, which is Terminator Jenny Smith, Genesis, whatever you want to call it. Here's the thing about this one. This one got so much hate that I didn't see it till like it was a couple weeks in the theaters. Thought, you know what? It's a Terminator movie. I'm gonna go check it out. I like the cast. I like Arnold. I like Emilia Clarke. I even like Jai Courtney and Jason Clarke. But as I went to see this movie, so much buzz about this being a horrible movie. I walked out not bad. Like I thought that was fine. It was a solid action film, and I like the concepts of it. Called Terminator Genesis fan fiction in the Terminator universe because it has that cool idea of what if we sent Kyle Reese back in time, but flip-flopped a lot of different elements to it. You look at so many of the different elements that go in here. It's a cool little time parallel in here. And obviously after Terminator Dark Fate, they did say that all these other versions of the Terminator afterwards were different timelines that could have gone through, whatever, that's just their way of saying different rebooted ideas did not work. But I was actually wanting to see more of the Genesis world. I thought it had some cool action sequences. Yeah, it's not R-rated, and I think that's kind of what also held it back. And one of the major detriments to this film was that they spoiled the twist. Now, while I didn't like the idea of the twist, I didn't like what they did with Jason Clarke's character at all. I don't like what they did with John Connor. It's also weird how like every interpretation of John Connor is completely different in every film that we've seen him in. Whatever, but Genesis, while I don't mind it, I think it's fun. I like the action bits inside of it, and I actually really like the characters in here. I like Emilia Clarke's version of Sarah Connor. I like Arnold in this, and this is one of my best versions of him as the Terminator, even though it is lower on my list. I like what they did with him. Kyle Reese's Jai Courtney, anyone could have played the Kyle Reese character in this one. Let's just be honest, but I liked what Jai Courtney did. It was not a lot, but I liked it. Even though I didn't love what they did with Jason Clarke's character in the story, Jason Clarke was good as John Connor. It just comes down to how they spoil that twist. And even if they didn't spoil that twist, I probably still wouldn't have liked it, but it would have still been surprising. And every time I happen to rewatch this film, I go and say, man, I really wish I had the memory of being, oh my god moment, instead of I saw that in the trailer and now it's showing up. Which brings me to my number 4, which I was going back and forth on this. I think this one is completely underrated, and that is Terminator Salvation. I love what McG actually did with this, going more forward in time. Let's show the war at hand. Let's get us introduced to another version of John Connor, that's Christian Bale. And Sam Worthington as well is a cool character. Rest in peace to Anton Yelchin, who played Kyle Reese in there. This is a really unique Terminator film. I love the bleak world that we get inside this one. The cinematography is really elegant and it fits into that bleak tone, but it's one of my favorites in the Terminator franchise because I love this world. Again, major feels like that fan fiction type stuff, but I like these different ideas that they brought about into the future. It is dark, it is a little bit gritty, and while it's not R-rated, and again, that's another element of what this film got set back on and you could have easily pulled up against on it, Terminator Salvation is a fun movie, and I really enjoy the grittiness of it. I really like playing the arcade game at a lot of the movie theaters that have it. You get to shoot the guns. I just like the world of Terminator, and I actually wish that we would have gotten more into this, and I actually hope that we get another Terminator film later down the road that takes place in the future. Before we get any further into this ranking, guys, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Again, comment down below, let me know what your ranking is of all the Terminator films. What's your favorite? Who's your favorite character? Let's discuss it down below. Make sure to also go check out Sandwich on Films on how to see films early, and of course, guys, a big thank you to you for clicking on this video, and a big thank you to my Patreon supporters, because without them, I wouldn't be able to do this. And coming in at my number 3, this was actually pretty close to my number 2, but I need to see it again, and that is Terminator Dark Fate, or the true sequel to Terminator 2. I have always loved the Terminator franchise. I've already mentioned this earlier. The first 2 I have not talked about was some of my favorite films growing up. My dad showed me them at a very young age, and they've always stuck with me. So Terminator Dark Fate actually meant a lot to me going into this movie. And while a lot of people are saying, yeah, this is the Force Awakens of the Terminator franchise, I can get that. I like that, though. I like that they borrowed elements from the first 2 Terminator stories and kind of meshed them together while adding in their own tone. And really the biggest thing is that this does not take place in LA. This takes place in Mexico City and also Texas, which was phenomenal. I like the different locations that they took us to. The other thing that I had a lot of fun with in this one was the different elements that they took from even the bad Terminator films. Quote unquote bad, because I don't think they're bad, but some people do. Whether it's Terminator 3, Salvation, or Jenny Smith, they took them both. They took all these little elements and actually elevated to them and added a needed adrenaline shot to this franchise. I hope we get more Terminator films that are inside this world, because while this could be the ending of the franchise, that would be completely fine, whatever, but I would hope that we actually get more from it, because the new characters that they brought in here, whether it's Natalia Ramos's character, is fantastic. Gabriel Luna is great as the new Rev 9 Terminator. He brought a subtle nuance to him, and it actually brought me memories of when the first time I ever saw Arnold as the Terminator in the very first Terminator, and the shock and horror value to that was great, and I think Tim Miller actually shaped that perfectly into the Rev 9, and of course Gabriel Luna really gave that to a thing, but really Mackenzie Davis is the character that stuck out to me the most. She was excellent in here, she was badass, she kicked a lot of ass, and she was one of my new favorite characters in this whole entire thing. Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor, phenomenal. I mean, why wouldn't you want to see Linda Hamilton kicking ass? And Arnold, this is some of my favorite things that they've ever done with the Terminator, and this is what I love what they do with this one, is that they did something different in him, a different dynamic, a different look on the Terminator thought, and I haven't even talked about it. The action is superb, and while sometimes you can't tell what's going on completely, and you could have pushed back a little bit and made it a little bit brighter, when they do a lot of hand-to-hand combat in this, when you see Terminator going against Terminator, it is badass. Brings me to my number 2, which is the very first Terminator film. Now, the very first Terminator film I have a soft spot for, and that's kind of why I don't think number 3 is on my number 2 yet, just because, yeah. The first Terminator for me is a horror film. There's action sequences, especially if you look inside the one and only police sequence, which is one of my favorite moments in the whole entire film. It's intense, it's gritty, and it's really on the edge of your seat. Plus, I really like the Kyle Reese character in here. I like what they did with the dynamic in there. Yeah, there's some moments that are rushed a bit, whether it's the relationship between him and Sarah Connor, but him protecting Sarah from the Terminator is horrifying. It adds to that uncomfortability and that just never-ending thing that will not die, and you must do everything to try and kill it. It's intense, it's fun, and while it brings into a new mythology, it's nothing that withstands my favorite Terminator film. My favorite Terminator film is T2 Judgment Day. This is still my favorite Terminator film. This is one of my favorite films of all time, and I could rewatch Judgment Day every single day of my life if I needed to. The pacing is superb. James Cameron doubles down on the dynamic of what the Terminator is and brings it about to even a stronger layer, diving into that mythology more and opening up the flesh wounds, putting on that twist. And I remember going to back to watch this, making sure that, oh my god, he's going after him, and it turns out no. Arnold's Terminator in here, the different nuance they did in this one, that he is the ally for them. It's strong. The cool relationship that he has with John Connor's Edward Furlong is great. Linda Hamilton really brings another dynamic to the Sarah Connor character, and just in general, this carries some of the best action sequences ever. This is why it's hailed as one of the best action set pieces and one of the best action films of all time. The story's intense, and it's just non-stop moving forward. Plus, it has a lot more to say about humanity than you would think. James Cameron did such a phenomenal job with this film, and this is actually why I have a lot of hope for Avatar 2, because while Avatar 1 had a lot of great ideas, and I do appreciate it more than anything. I think Avatar 2 could really double down on the same thing that he did with T2, just like how he did with T1. T2 really sticks out to me. I love the score, I love the characters, I love the story, the action set pieces, everything. It's a non-stop ride, and I really do hope that the Terminator franchise does not end with Dark Fate, because there's enough in there to get me warranted for another one. Let's just hope it works out in that way. But guys, of course, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this franchise. Do you guys like it? Do you hate it? Let's discuss it down below in the comments, guys. What are your guys' thoughts on Dark Fate? What is your ranking? Let's discuss it down below, guys. Thank you guys again so much for watching this, and of course, until next time, stay classy.